Warriors fans, tonight feels like one of those matchups that quietly carries the weight of a turning point. You look at the stretch the team has been on, the little moments of confidence building, the close calls, the frustrating lapses, and everything lands right here, back at Chase Center, facing a Rockets squad that has been playing above expectations, even with half their roster out. And that is where the whole thing gets interesting, because for the first time in a while, the Warriors walk into a game with the advantage on the injury report instead of the other way around. Houston is missing several key pieces, from their dynamic scoring punch to the interior depth that usually gives the Warriors headaches. And honestly, for a team that has struggled at times to control the paint, not having to deal with two 7-footers rotating in and out is a blessing the Warriors cannot afford to waste. One of the biggest storylines tonight is centered around Quinn Post, who has been thrown into the fire faster than anyone expected. Every night becomes another quiz, another evaluation of what type of big man he can be in this league. And tonight, with Houston limited inside, he has the chance to stretch the floor, drag defenders away from the paint, and open all kinds of space for the drives, cuts, and off-ball magic that Steph, Clay, Draymond, and the Wings thrive on. The team needs him to be assertive, to take shots with confidence, and to be physical enough to keep Houston honest. It is the kind of matchup where a young player can start carving out real trust with his teammates, especially when the coaching staff knows how badly they need front-court stability. Draymond Green being a game-time decision complicates everything. The Warriors always look different when he is on the floor, and different usually means better. He sets the tone defensively. He quarterbacks the offense in ways box scores never capture, and he brings a type of intensity that can send a message before the opening tip even happens. If he plays, the Warriors gain an anchor. If he sits, the rest of the group has to find an identity defensively without their most important communicator. On top of that, the continued absence of Al Horford, along with Jonathan Kuminga and no real updates on De'Anthony Melton, leaves the rotation thinner than anyone would like. Still, even with those setbacks, this is a game the Warriors should be able to seize early if they simply come with purpose. Looking back at the last 10 games, the Rockets have been the hotter team, winning 8 of those matchups and building real momentum. The Warriors, meanwhile, have hovered around that break-even point, not falling apart, but not exactly soaring either. But the context matters. Houston is without its leading scorer, and that shifts the entire dynamic of how they generate offense. The real question becomes whether Steph Curry can take full advantage of the defensive attention that shifts around Houston's younger guards. Reed Shepherd is talented and quick, but guarding Steph is a completely different universe. Then there is Amen Thompson, a player who has given Steph fits in the past with his length, instincts, and relentless pressure. Anyone who watched that playoff series remembers how physically smothering he was, almost glued to Steph possession after possession. Even then, Steph still found ways to hurt them, because that is what he does. But tonight is another test of whether the Warriors can help him the way he needs to be helped. When teams sell out on Steph, the whole roster has to respond. Screens need to be cleaner, off-ball cuts sharper, spacing tighter, and the secondary creators have to punish defenses for overcommitting. If the Warriors fall into the trap of watching Steph try to solve every possession alone, things can get messy quickly. But if they move the ball, if they stay patient, if they bring the type of discipline they have shown in their better stretches, they can control this game from the start. This also happens to be an NBA Cup matchup, which always sparks debate. Some fans like the idea, others do not care at all, and most fall somewhere in the middle. Around the league, it feels like people are still trying to understand what this tournament is supposed to mean emotionally. The players get the financial incentive, sure, but for fans it still feels like a normal early season game wrapped in louder colors and a shinier court. The league wants to create a mid-season spark, something that keeps casual viewers tuned in before the Christmas slate arrives. But until the NBA Cup builds its own history, traditions, or signature moments, it is only natural for diehards to watch it the same way they watch everything else, through the lens of how it affects their team's development, chemistry, and playoff trajectory. Last night's game between the Sixers and Magic was another example. Even with all the branding, even with the colorful floor, it still played out like another November showdown. The idea makes sense. trying to borrow from the energy of European soccer or from how other leagues structure mid-season competitions. But the emotional weight is not there yet. Fans want stakes that feel meaningful, not decorative. And until that foundation is built, people will continue to watch out of loyalty to their team rather than excitement for the tournament itself. Still, Warriors fans know the truth. Every game in this stretch matters, cup or not. The team is still searching for its healthiest version, still trying to re-establish rhythm, still trying to prove it can hang with the stronger teams in the West once the season moves into the high-intensity months. And games like tonight offer a chance to stack confidence and sharpen habits against an opponent missing its biggest weapons. It is the kind of opportunity that cannot be wasted, especially in a conference where standings swing wildly from week to week. And speaking of opportunities, the comment section lately has been full of trade ideas, and some of them have sparked real conversation. One that stood out was the idea of going after a young center like Kellel, where a player with good length, mobility, and an emerging rebound presence. It is a fun idea, but the reality is complicated. The Miami organization rarely lets raw talent go for cheap. They develop players better than almost anyone in the league, turn unknown prospects into rotation pieces, and consistently overachieve because of their structure. They value culture, conditioning, discipline, and internal development so highly that moving a young, cost-control player is unlikely unless it directly helps them reshape the roster in a major way. When you start digging deeper into how the Warriors should approach the rest of the season, it becomes clear that patience and timing matter more now than they have in years. Every discussion about possible trades, roster adjustments, or long-term fixes feels premature until Golden State actually gets healthy enough to understand what they truly have. The season has been full of flashes from different players, each one hinting at a version of this team that could resemble something dangerous, but those glimpses never come together all at once. Some nights the ball movement looks like classic Warriors basketball. Some nights the defense is bite. Some nights the bench steps up with unexpected scoring, but rarely do all those things align. And that is why the organization cannot allow itself to panic or chase a quick-fix deal without evaluating how the core looks once everyone is back on the floor. The idea of adding another big man has been floating around for weeks, and rightfully so. Size and physicality have been a recurring issue, especially against teams that crash the offensive glass or force Golden State into mismatches inside. But there's a difference between identifying a need and rushing into something that does not actually solve the underlying issue. A player like Domantas Sabonis, for example, would absolutely bring rebounding, passing, and interior scoring, but even that type of move depends on timing, contracts, and whether the roster construction allows both players to coexist alongside Draymond. People forget that Draymond has successfully matched with bigs before, from Andrew Bogut to David West, and even Kevin Looney during his peak stretch. When the system is flowing, when ball movement is crisp, and when everyone commits to the defensive rotations, the pieces fit more naturally than people assume. Still, trade season is unpredictable. Teams who look stable now can suddenly fall apart after injury or chemistry issues, and those who seem stuck might swing for the fences. The Warriors have always been strategic in these moments, never reacting emotionally, always planning for both the present and the long-term vision. That is why so many names from around the league get tossed into fan discussions, from younger centers to veterans on expiring contracts. But until Jonathan Kuminga's trade restriction is lifted and until the roster stabilizes, it is all theory. The staff wants to see what the group looks like when the rotation is closer to whole, when roles can settle, and when those small lineups that have been a signature of their identity can actually be executed with consistency instead of out of necessity. The West is too crowded for predictions right now. The difference between the 3rd seed and the 8th seed has been razor thin, decided by a handful of possessions and the unpredictable nature of back-to-backs and injuries. Any team that thinks it has security this early is fooling itself. For the Warriors, that means stacking wins where they can, exploiting matchups, and maintaining a steady mindset while the rest of the conference churns and scrambles. The way you survive this stretch is not by blowing up the roster or chasing panic moves. It is by focusing on each game, finding small edges, and building the chemistry that this team desperately needs. Against the Rockets, for example, this is exactly the kind of night where discipline matters. Houston might be missing their main scoring threat, but they still thrive on energy, youth, and aggression. Their pace can overwhelm teams who do not communicate well on defense. Their wings fill lanes quickly, their guards attack gaps, and their defensive pressure can frustrate teams that fall into isolations. The Warriors cannot afford to treat this like a game that is won by default simply because of injuries. They need to dictate tempo early, get high-percentage shots, and keep turnovers under control. One careless stretch is all it takes for a young team to gain confidence and flip momentum, and the Warriors have learned that the hard way more than once this season. Steph Curry will always be the center of attention, but the Warriors cannot rely on him alone. The Houston defensive scheme will try to deny him handoffs, chase him off screens, and force the ball out of his hands. When that happens, it is on the rest of the roster to make the Rockets pay. Their responsibility falls heavily on the wings and secondary creators. Moses Moody has been showing signs of improved decisiveness. Podziemski has an instinctive feel for when to extend possessions with hustle plays, and Chris Paul, even in a different stage of his career, can still stabilize the offense when it starts drifting into chaos. If the Warriors utilize that balance, Steph does not have to drop 50 points for them to win. He just has to bend the defense enough for everyone else to thrive. What makes this team so fascinating is that they are in a transition period without fully committing to any direction yet. They are still trying to maximize what remains of the veteran core, while simultaneously introducing the next generation of players into meaningful roles. It is a delicate balance, one that requires trust between coaching and players, and one that demands accountability. Younger players need to prove they can contribute consistently, not occasionally. Veterans need to stay adaptable, not rigid. And the coaching staff has to adjust in real time, learning what combinations actually work and which ones simply look good on paper. When you consider all of this, you realize that the Warriors' season is less about chasing a perfect record and more about discovery. They're trying to learn who they are now, not who they used to be. They're testing lineups that have never existed before, leaning on players who were not even in the league a short time ago, and balancing expectations from a fan base that still remembers the dynastic years vividly. The landscape of the league has changed. Opponents have evolved. The conference is deeper. And despite that, the Warriors still have the ability to disrupt the hierarchy if they find the right rhythm and stay healthy long enough to build something stable. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. In what is already sending tremors through the NBA rumor mill, sources close to team circles suggest that the Golden State Warriors are making an aggressive push for one of Portland's brightest stars. The news, still unofficial but gaining traction among insiders, has fans and pundits alike speculating on a potential shakeup that could ripple across the league. The Warriors, known for their championship pedigree and penchant for high-profile acquisitions, are reportedly exploring every avenue to bring the Portland talent into their fold. While contract details and trade mechanics remain closely guarded, the very fact that Golden State is circling a marquee player from another Western Conference contender is enough to set the rumor mill on fire. Analysts are already debating the implications. Could this move signal a recalibration of the Warriors' roster ahead of a crucial stretch, or is it a long-term strategy to secure yet another cornerstone for their dynasty? Portland, a franchise that has carefully cultivated its young stars, may find itself under pressure to negotiate. Insiders hint at a behind-the-scenes chess game, with management weighing loyalty, market value, and the broader impact on team chemistry. Meanwhile, fans on social media are buzzing, dissecting every possible scenario, from blockbuster trades to subtle roster tweaks. The speculation has sparked a whirlwind of discussion. From fantasy leagues to casual debates, everyone seems to have an opinion on whether the Warriors' rumored pursuit could redefine the balance of power in the West. For now, all parties remain tight-lipped, fueling even more intrigue. NBA insiders warn that if the Warriors truly are serious, negotiations could escalate quickly, forcing Portland to make some tough decisions. In a league where timing is everything, one bold move could trigger a domino effect, sending shockwaves through both franchises. As the chatter grows louder, one thing is clear. The basketball world is watching, and the next twist in this unfolding saga could arrive sooner than anyone expects. The question on everyone's mind is simple yet tantalizing. Will Golden State succeed in luring a key Portland star into their orbit, or is this just another tantalizing rumor destined to fade into speculation? Either way, the buzz is undeniable, and the NBA landscape may never look quite the same again. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.